I took on the responsibility of raising my sister's 3 children after she abandoned them, and now they want to thank me with money, but she's furious and demanding it for herself. I'm 48, and my younger sister, Diana, is 46. We've never had the best relationship. She was often pretentious and unkind during our childhood, leading us to drift apart as teens. I pursued my college education, while she moved in with her wealthy boyfriend. Our parents supported her choice, even though they couldn't afford to help her live on her own, because Diana made it clear she didn't care about their opinions. At 20, she had twin girls, and by 21, she had a boy. Our parents were thrilled for her, but they also worried since she was now solely dependent on her boyfriend's income. Diana and her boyfriend never married, which I think was a mistake, as she could have at least secured alimony after their eventual breakup. When she discovered he had cheated on her, they separated. Although he provided child support, he opted out of his parental rights, leaving her alone to care for 3 young children. Her girls were just 3, and her son was 2. Despite our rocky relationship, I felt compelled to help her because of our parents. I had a decent income, enough to chip in a little each month alongside my parents, but it wasn't sufficient to support all 4 of them entirely. The initial months were tough for Diana. Lacking a degree and work experience, she struggled to find decent employment. She had to start from the bottom and put in long hours to make ends meet while juggling childcare. Hiring a babysitter was out of the question due to costs, so she often relied on me or her friends for help. Unfortunately, most of her friends were busy with their own lives and couldn't step in, which left Diana stuck in low-wage jobs. As time went on, I noticed that Diana began to resent her children, viewing them as obstacles to her success. I would visit often, not for her sake, but to ensure her kids were okay. Although our relationship was strained, I couldn't ignore their well-being. They often confided in me about how poorly Diana treated them. She scolded them for minor issues and often lashed out, creating a toxic environment. It broke my heart, and I wished I could rescue them, but as their mother, she had rights over them, and I had none. Despite receiving child support, Diana continued to date and blamed her children whenever her relationships failed. She insisted that her boyfriends left her upon learning about her kids, but I believed she simply failed to mention them until after the relationships had developed. I often tried to explain this to her, but she remained convinced that her children were the root of her problems. She would remind them of their father's abandonment and threaten to leave them behind if they misbehaved, instilling a deep fear in them. Years passed in this miserable existence. I frequently considered taking the kids away from her, but I knew it wasn't feasible. I couldn't file for custody or report her, as her actions, while neglectful, didn't warrant losing her parental rights. The children found solace in me, especially when they faced challenges at school or at home. I cherished their trust and made it a point to be there for them. So, when they turned 18, it wasn't surprising that they chose to move in with me. Now that they were adults, they had the freedom to live where they wanted, and they chose me over their mother. Diana was furious. She claimed to have sacrificed 18 years for her kids, only to have them abandon her when they were old enough to choose. She bitterly accused me of swooping in at the last moment to take over, rather than stepping up when they were younger. I wanted to tell her the truth, that she hadn't really raised them at all. They had effectively raised themselves while she pursued her own happiness, neglecting their needs and feelings. I held my tongue, understanding that she was hurting, which was why she lashed out at me. After that, our contact dwindled, her children cut ties with her, and she distanced herself from the entire family, including our parents, who hadn't done anything to deserve her wrath. It's been 7 years since then, and I honestly don't know what Diana is up to, but her kids are thriving. My nephew is now a pediatrician, one niece is a literature teacher, and the other runs her own hair salon. I helped them secure loans for their ventures and did my best to support them. I couldn't be prouder of how far they've come from the difficult childhood they endured. They lived with me for 4 years, mostly while attending college, returning home only occasionally. I never wanted to return to a home where they felt unwanted, and I'm talking about Diana's place. It's been 2 years since they moved out, and I'm genuinely happy for all of them. I never expected anything in return for what I did. I helped them because it felt right. They were just kids, and despite the complicated history with my sister, I couldn't be heartless toward them. I always had a soft spot for them, especially since I don't have kids of my own and never got married. Marriage just wasn't for me, but I wanted to be a parental figure for them because their father was absent, and we all knew what kind of person Diana was. My parents were too old for that role, so I stepped in. I never expected anything back, but I'm touched that they think I deserve a token of appreciation for my support, even though I don't see it that way. Last week, I celebrated my 48th birthday and invited friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. It was a fantastic party, and my nephew organized everything for me, even though I offered to cover the costs. He insisted on treating me to express his gratitude, saying he was finally in a position to do so. After the party, the three of them sat me down and shared that they had discussed something important. Now that they were financially stable, they wanted to show their gratitude by writing me a check. I tried to explain that it wasn't necessary since I could support myself, but they insisted it wasn't about repaying a debt. They appreciated the support and faith I had shown them, which couldn't be quantified, so this was simply their way of expressing thanks. I was deeply touched and decided to share this on social media to acknowledge their kind gesture. My sister and I haven't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care about my post. I was blocked on all platforms, so I figured she wouldn't see it. Diana had never reached out to check on her children after they moved out. Sure, they cut ties first, moving in with me to escape her, but that was her doing. At the very least, she could have shown some interest in their lives to try to mend her past mistakes. But honestly, it seemed like she didn't care, and I assumed she was doing just fine. A couple of days after my post, I received an unexpected message from her. After 6 years of silence, I should have known she would reach out once she realized her kids were financially secure. She mentioned reading my post and expressed a desire to reconnect with them, admitting she hadn't been a good mother in the past. Now, she wanted to have a relationship with them, claiming she missed them during those years. I was skeptical. If she truly missed them, why hadn't she reached out before? She wanted me to mediate and help bridge the gap since they responded well to me. The timing felt off, so I chose to ignore her message, irritated by her obvious motives. When I didn't reply, she called me in the evening, and that's when I lost it. She insisted I help her reconnect with the kids, but I told her I wouldn't do that. I knew she was only after them for their money, pretending to care about their well-being to gain access to their finances. She had no genuine interest in being a mother again. If she truly regretted her past actions, she would reach out to them directly, not me. It was astounding how entitled she was, still expecting them to come to her despite her past mistakes. She tried to argue that I was wrong for assuming she was after their money, but I firmly believed it was clear as day, and I was disgusted by her behavior. Then she accused me of stealing everything from her, first her children and now their money. I made it clear that I didn't need the money, and I had been hesitant to accept the check in the first place. But now I felt justified in keeping it from her. Now, she's crying on social media and trying to paint me as the villain. Some relatives think I went too far and believe I owe her an apology, which is unbelievable. I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong for telling her she didn't deserve the money her kids chose to give me. Update. I spoke with my nieces and nephew about the situation. As the comments suggested, they had already heard about it from a few relatives and were planning to discuss it with me. After our conversation, they expressed that they felt I did the right thing. My nephew was particularly vocal, saying he had never viewed his mother as a maternal figure. That role had always belonged to me since she had never been there for him. My niece agreed, but she was too emotional to speak much. My nephew was furious and told me that Diana needed to confront me because she had never even met the bare minimum as a mother. Despite receiving child support, she constantly belittled them and made them feel guilty for simply existing. It wasn't their fault. They believe I acted correctly and told me not to reach out to their mother under any circumstances. They also encouraged me to share my side of the story online since Diana was spreading negativity about me. I'm glad they have my back because my parents want to stay out of it entirely. I find it really strange that Diana never reached out to our family after being cut off by her kids. My parents' diplomatic approach to this situation is puzzling since they haven't spoken to her in the last 6 years either. I was somewhat disappointed by their stance, but at least my nieces and nephew are on my side. Now, many people have asked why I didn't seek custody of the kids if I knew Diana was a bad mother who wasn't treating them well. While what she did wasn't right, it didn't rise to the level of torture, abuse, or neglect. She was consistently mean and emotionally unavailable to them. I could have pursued custody, but I doubted I'd succeed. Courts typically favor keeping families together, and these kids had already lost their father. Their mother was their only remaining biological parent, so it made sense for the court to want them to stay together. I knew that if I took any legal action against Diana, she would retaliate by keeping the kids away from me, possibly taking them far away. Given the odds of gaining custody were slim, I felt it was safer for them to remain with their mother while I maintained contact. I'm not sure if this was the right choice in the long run, but at that moment, it felt like the best solution. I often wrestled with whether I should take legal action or try to have them removed from her care, but I believed it was better for them to be with her than risk an uncertain future. I hope that clarifies things for those who question my decisions. I may seem like the bad guy, but I'm more concerned about the kids' well-being. They're doing well now, and I've always been there for them, so I don't feel guilty. Update 2. It's been a week since Diana's message, and I've received numerous calls from relatives who have spoken to her, telling me I was wrong. It was exhausting, especially since I've been busy with work. After talking with my nephew and nieces, I decided it was time to share my side of the story. I wanted to shed light on their childhood and the challenges they faced, which nobody in the family seemed to know about. They endured countless taunts because Diana had made poor choices, prioritizing her boyfriend over her kids. Even after making those choices, she continued to blame others and acted like she was doing her best for her children. But the truth is, she was never really present for them. Now that her kids are doing better financially, she's claiming I've stolen them and their success. It's time people heard the real story, not just her distorted version where she plays the victim. I typed everything out and made the post. So far, Diana hasn't responded directly. The relatives who judged me have changed their tune, apologizing for their hasty conclusions. But honestly, their opinions don't matter to me anymore. I just wanted the truth out there about how Diana treated her kids, which led to their estrangement. With that said, I'm ready to move on. I've been happier for the last 6 years without her in my life, and I'm sure her kids feel the same way. I don't understand why she felt the need to stir up drama. If she wanted financial help, she could have simply asked instead of pretending to want to reconnect as a mother. Update 3. It's been a day since I posted. Today, Diana decided to retaliate, not by contacting me but by commenting on my post, trying to make me look like a liar. It backfired spectacularly. Her kids jumped in, recalling specific instances from their childhood where she had mistreated them. For about an hour, we all enjoyed watching her get humiliated. There was no way she could cover her tracks when her own kids were calling her out. Thankfully, I chose to share my side on the weekend, allowing us to respond quickly. Eventually, she started deleting her comments to hide her lies, but it was too late. Many had already seen the exchanges. She ended up blocking me and her kids, which seemed like her way of surrendering. Honestly, I'm relieved because in this battle, we clearly held the moral high ground. I thought deleting her comments might end the conflict, but then she decided to send me a message, claiming I had painted her as the villain and that everyone now hated her. I found that ironic coming from her, considering she started this drama. It's bewildering how some people can dish it out but can't handle the fallout. If you don't want the consequences, don't create the chaos in the first place. I ignored her message and planned to continue ignoring her for the rest of my life. She's proven she doesn't deserve our attention anymore.